So the European Union is set to let travelers from member countries avoid testing and quarantine starting next month if they can prove they are fully vaccinated. Estonia is one of those EU countries that's developed its own digital vaccine certificate. So will something like that be used for things other than travel? And what could Canada learn from a country that is in many ways leading on this? Kaja Kallas is Estonia's Prime Minister, and she's in their capital, Tallinn. Prime Minister, a real pleasure to have you here on the program. Thank you so much for making time. And I want to talk about Vaccine Guard, this certificate. Estonia, not a large country, but known for being digitally focused with your government. How does this certificate work? What does it allow people to do?
Well, this certificate works like a boarding pass. Remember those times when we got to travel? So basically, it's a QR code, and it shows whether it's green or red, and it also shows whether you're vaccinated or you have a negative test or you have been you have had the illness. So this all shows that you are safe to the others. I mean, this is how it works technically, but the question is, of course, for what it is used for. First, the agreement among the European countries is that we can use it when we cross the borders to show that we are not bringing the disease. But the discussion goes on whether you can also use it within the countries for having some services or not. And of course, this brings about the question about discrimination.
Mm-hmm. And how have you dealt with that?
Well, first of all, we started with the traveling allowance, so to say, and now the discussion goes on about how to use it internally. And what we want to see is that it's basically like a fast track. Not that we are giving some additional rights to people who have been vaccinated, but there's a more comfortable way of getting things. For example, when we have big concerts and people are really close together, then we want to make sure that they are safe to each other in terms of health. And therefore, you have two ways to enter the concert. Either you do this negative rapid test, or you present your vaccination certificate. So considering that the test is somewhat uncomfortable, then the vaccination certificate gives you just, a more comfortable way to access the big events.
And then in terms of travel, I understand the European Union system opened this past Tuesday to allow member states to join its sort of broader digital passport, the digital gateway. At what point will Estonians be able to travel freely once again within the EU?
Well, yes, this European certificate should be up and running, but of course there are some ways to implement this. So hopefully we can start to travel already in June or in July, or actually we can travel right now when we present the negative test. So it should make this traveling more easy.
And then with the actual the certificate that you've created, that QR code, is that something that then you would be able to use to go into other countries as someone who's flying or driving?
Yes, well, it should work like this, and as we know that this is a global pandemic, so in order to have this globally, we need to have global agreements as well, how we can prove that we are not bringing the disease to one another's countries. So this is the way we start on the European level. So you can present the vaccination certificate, and clearly this is something that especially some countries that are very dependent on tourism look forward to using. And of course internally in all the member states, the usage of this certificate is different.
Canada is now looking at what it's going to produce, and the way it works here is the provinces are the ones that keep the records of who has been vaccinated, but the federal government would talk to them and presumably sort something out in the coming weeks or months. But one of the concerns, of course, is cybersecurity and the ability to falsify some of these records. What have you done to address those kinds of concerns?
Well, first of all, to falsify this little yellow book showing that you have been vaccinated is much more easier, and this one is on paper. So in terms of cybersecurity, it should work like this, that you have different databases. So databases communicate with other databases, and just checking whether you're green or red and doesn't access your health data. I think this is fundamentally important, that in terms of data protection, e-privacy, that information is not exchanged between countries, just to show that that person has been vaccinated.
I want to talk to you about NATO, which is in the midst of a large-scale exercise. It was first on the water and now looking to move through parts of Europe, really in many ways to both prepare and push back against Russian actions and aggression on the continent. Canada has had troops deployed next door to you in Latvia for a number of years now. When you look at the state of, I mean, you're a small player next door to big Russia. What are the worries that you have when you look at, for instance, most recently, Russia supporting Belarus's dictator as he ripped an opposition figure off of a plane by using a fighter jet to order it out of the sky?
Yes, well, Russia only goes as far as we let them. So this is clearly, a sign that we have maybe let them to go too far. For us, this means our security, our independence, and we are very worried about Russia's actions. But at the same time, NATO works on collective defense and deterrence, and deterrence has worked in our case so far, so that Russia hasn't made any moves on us. And for that, we are very grateful for the allies. And as we have the upcoming NATO summit in the 14th of June, I think the discussions going on there, by going back to the basics that NATO is for and how to really make us all stronger. These are very important discussions for us as a small country with a neighbor like this. And of course, we are very grateful also Canadian forces who are in Latvia, as we are a small region, and this is definitely also for our security. So being part of this NATO family is a big part of our independence.
Now, the Russians have been massing troops along their eastern border, and they say the reason they're doing that is because of NATO's actions, because NATO has been running these exercises. Does that fly with you?
That doesn't fly because NATO hasn't made any moves, whereas Russia has made moves. If you look at Ukraine, Crimea, Eastern Ukraine, if you look at Georgia, then Russia has made their moves there. And these are countries that are not part of NATO. So as I see it, it's a global fight of power. And for Russia, these countries, Eastern Partnership countries, they can't slip to the European or Western value sphere, so to speak. And so I mean, for Putin, this was a fundamental mistake that Baltic countries slipped away, so to say. So he's doing everything to prevent this. And therefore, I think why we are still independent, why we are still strong, is because we have big, good friends. This is called deterrence, and this works.
Prime Minister Kallas, thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All the best.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.